Welcome to the playground of potential. I'm Matt the Poet, and this is my playground. Today, I'd like to talk about ego deaths. What is an ego death? It's a term you might hear bandied around spiritual circles quite a bit. And a lot of people believe that the goal of spirituality is to kill the ego, right? And while that's not altogether wrong, I think it's a misunderstood concept. So I'm going to go into it today. To start out with, I have to differentiate between the Western idea of ego and the Eastern idea of ego, because we're talking Eastern, but from the Western perspective, you can get it all mixed up because Freudian psychology talks about the ego, right? And in that respect, it's talking about the conscious mind. Everything else is the unconscious mind, buried beneath the surface. The ego in Western psychology is that surface level attention that we give our thoughts and the world around us, where we are conscious of things, right? Whereas the Eastern version of ego is referring to self-concept, the self, right? What we consider ourselves to be, right? The roles we play, obviously the avatar we inhabit. You know, these are aspects of the personality self, right? The portion of self that we think is static because we've sort of built this static image of ourselves over time. But in truth, a lot of Eastern philosophy and religion is pointing to the fact that it's illusory, right? The self is one thing at one time and another thing at another time. You know, it's like, how many times have you shown up in different roles in your life and you look like two different people, right? That's common to everyone. Everyone experiences this sort of mutable self, right? Ever-changing self. So going back to the original concept, what is an ego death if the self is always changing? So the self-concept that we have, it goes through stages, right? And depending on where you are, you might have an ego death. And in this experience, you might be stepping out of one role in life and stepping into another one. And I find myself personally going through it, and it's a perfect way to sort of elucidate what's going on in an ego death, because I'm going through it right now. You know, I introduce myself in every video as Matt the Poet, and that's something dear to my heart. Poetry has always been a love of mine since I was a child, and that's never going to change. But that's but one role that I've fulfilled in my life. I've been the artist in life, and now in recent years I've been called to step into the role of teacher or guide. And this is completely different than artist, right? Artist has a level of carefree sort of expression, whereas teacher and guide, I am now stepping into service to others. And it's not that the poet has to die for the teacher to be born, but I have to incorporate these concepts of teacher and guide into my greater identity now. And that's an ego death. I have to let go of being carefree artist who is exploring the world in a sensual way, to incorporating more into my experience, where I'm not only that. I am now guide and teacher, and these different roles that I now find myself through my business stepping into. And it's exciting for me, I, at an early age, kind of recognized the mutability of self and really like went with the flow. In fact, it really bothered me when people really saw me as a previous version of myself. I saw this very often in my youth with my parents, and it was just, there was an idea within me that I knew that I was ever changing. I felt it at a very early age. So when people would sort of keep me in a box in how they saw me based on previous actions, it became frustrating because all I wanted to do was change, move into the next stage of my life. You know, I've had a lot of stages in my life, and I've had a lot of ego deaths, and I've died numerous times over the course of my life in this sense, right? And thank God, because some of those incarnations, some of those ways that I was showing up were freaking faulty. I mean, they had some interesting things to show me about the world, but particularly when I was in my time of addiction, right, it was ugly and dark. So if I was stuck in that identity of addict, of dependent, I could have lived a very miserable life. And instead, I freed myself from that through the process of ego death, through the process of rebirthing myself in some way, recognizing that we aren't static beings. We are capable of being so much in a single lifetime. So I hope this helps you get a better picture of what ego death can be. And if you find yourself in a moment in time right now where you're needing help navigating the process of transformation that you're going through, I have the offering of transformational guidance sessions. They're on my website, playgroundofpotential.com. And in these sessions, I can impart some of the wisdom and also seek the wisdom from your own internal self as you are looking for your next incarnation, right? Your next step of evolution within your being. And I'd love to help you through that. So if that interests you, like I said, it's on the website, playgroundofpotential.com, under offerings. And I hope this video spoke to you and maybe clarified some things for you in regards to the ego and ego deaths. I look forward to sharing more with you in the future. Peace.